Welcome to SplitSecond. If you want to buy the best sleeves or other magic-related accessories, head down to Dragon Shield using the affiliate link below. This week we have Elder on his favorite Jeska and Yoshimaru list. Diogo is now officially our new member and he brought another one of his favorite decks, which, of course, must include Dargo in the command zone. This one is paired with Tevesh. David is piloting Gemstone Mine and Jake Globe Kings, Malcolm and Kediss Polyhorn. And Bal is trying out Azami, Wizard of Oz's list, that you can find in the database by Silence, Chicken Devourer of Galaxinae, Key Beatson and Noob Zors. Elder is going first and he will gun down to 6, finding a Hammerheim paired with a Jewel Lotus, which allows him to cast both commanders on turn 1. From there, Luxor can boost Yoshi's power a lot, or even Jeska. Hope of Girapur serves as preemptive protection, nor in the Wary is that pesky dude which bothers all narrators worldwide. Smothering Tithe can keep treasures flowing to boost his mana needs, and he sent Bruce Tarl to the bottom. Diogo also mulliganed once and found plenty of mana to get his Tevesh on turn 2 and start drawing some cards. A single swamp but with most of the fast mana on Sol Ring, Mana Vault and Grim Monolith, close on Kuru for some dockside loops. The Golden Throne is a new recent addition to the deck and Vampire Tutor helps him pivot his game plan. David kept his first 7, with enough mana for a turn 1 Malcolm, Training Center, Urza Saga and Ancient Tomb for lands, Lotus Petal for ramp, Curiosity can come down quite early and keep a steady flow of card draw, into the Royal for some temporary or definitive removal if chained into that Time Twister. Lastly, Bal mulliganed once and didn't want to go lower, being 4th in turn order. Slow Hand with an Island and Scalding Tarn for lands, Sapphire Medallion for semi-ramp, Miscast and Fierce Guardianship for some interaction, Snapcaster Mage for spell recursion and Spellseeker to help him pivot his game plan. Ready for the match? Elder just top decks a Flooded Shrine, which he plays and cracks for a plateau. He casts his commander Yoshimaru Ever Faithful. He still goes ahead casting Jewel Lotus and cracking it to cast his other commander Jeska Thrice Reborn. Yoshi triggers and he just passes. Diogo gets to his turn, plays the swamp and casts his Sol Ring, following it with his Grim Monolith and just passes. David draws, plays his Ancient Tomb and casts a Lotus Petal. With those 3 mana, he casts his commander Malcolm Keen Eye Navigator and ships it to Bal, mentioning he's taking one for the team, as he either loses Malcolm to Jeska's Minus ability or takes her down. Bal simply plays a Snow-covered island and passes. Elder untaps, plays Emmerheim, triggering Yoshi for another counter. He then casts Luxor, Giada's Gift, once again triggering Yoshimaru. He then equips Luxor onto Jeska so she can't be attacked, and therefore he can just use her Zero ability to triple Yoshi's damage, and he attacks Diogo for 12 commander damage and passes. Diogo gets to his turn and still no lands. He casts his Mana Vault and follows it with his Tevesh Zat, Doom of Fools. He upticks it, creating 2 Thralls and passes. David plays a Training Center and casts his other commander, Kediss, Emberclaw Familiar. He sends Malcolm towards Elder, connecting for 2 damage and a treasure, and triggering Kediss for 2 more damage to Diogo and Bal for 2 more treasures, ending his turn pretty much set up. Bal simply plays his Scalding Tarn and cracks it for another Snow Island. He casts a Sapphire Medallion and passes. Elder draws, plays a City of Brass and casts them all pesky nor in the Wary, entering and triggering Yoshi. We will mention right away that every time someone attacks or casts a spell, Norin triggers and re-enters play at end of turn, triggering Yoshi again if he's in play. So we will skip narrating those but animating them nevertheless. Elder casts Hope of Girapur and follows that with a Ragavan Nimble Pilferer. He activates Jeska's Zero ability on Yoshimaru, preparing himself for combat. Everyone mentions Bal has no blockers, and not only trying to defend himself, he tells him that killing him would plainly give the game to David or even Diogo. The thrill of killing Bal though on turn 2 is higher, so he turns his dog sideways and Bal is our first casualty. We're back to Diogo's turn. He finds and plays a Shatterskull the Hammer Pass untapped, paying 3 life. He then casts the Golden Throne, which doesn't even save him from Yoshi. He still casts his other commander, Dargo the Shipwrecker, by sacrificing his Mana Vault and Grim Monolith to help pay its cost. He then upticks Tevesh, sacrificing Dargo, allowing him to draw 3 cards. He then uses the Golden Throne to sacrifice 1 Thrall for double red and 1 black mana to help cast Dargo again. He follows that with a Goblin Welder and finishes the turn with a Dothy Voidwalker. David just untaps with 6 mana. The table is not aware he's on Polymorph, so they mostly fear a Niv Mizzet or something as scary. He plays Urza Saga, entering and gaining its first ability. He then casts a Curiosity on Malcolm, and while that's not a Niv Mizzet paired with Kediss, it's quite dangerous as well. He then attacks Elder with Malcolm, triggering to create a treasure and draw a card, and then Kediss also triggers for another treasure and card drawn. He just drew some juice, and as he passes fully untapped, they fear an incoming Cyclonic Rift. Elder draws and considers options, but eventually activates Jeska on Yoshimaru for triple damage and sends all his creatures towards David, to eventually make him fire the Rift, which he does indeed, to no surprise at all. This way, on his second main phase, Elder is able to be the first one to recast his stuff. He ponders his options, but goes for Jeska first, to hopefully deny David all his value, but David responds with the Force of Negation, pitching his into the Royal, so Elder sadly passes. Diogo gets to his turn, casts his Sol Ring and then casts a Feed the Swarm on Malcolm, but David still has a Force of Will at hand, and he pitches his Time Twister to it. Diogo proceeds to clean up and we're back to David. He draws and his saga gains its second ability. He plays a City of Brass and casts a Reality Scramble on Kediss. Players now see their doom. Well, Diogo sees it, because since Bal left the game already, David won't be able to kill both opponents with one attack. He then sends Malcolm towards Elder and glint-horn towards Diogo. Damage connects and he draws a card and creates 2 treasures. Still, in the combat damage step, David activates glint-horn Buccaneer, discarding a card to draw a card and pinging his 2 opponents for 1, which triggers Malcolm for 2 more treasures. He does this all the way until Diogo dies from it, and with the last iteration he has 2 cards in hand and 4 treasures available, passing to Elder. Elder hopes for a land as he has Linvala in hand, which would save him, but he doesn't find it. This way he recasts Yoshimaru and follows it with a Dash Dragovan, proceeding to combat, but in response David casts an Unsubstantiate on the monkey, just to be sure. Elder passes and Norn comes back to feed the dog, perhaps his last time. David draws and his saga gains its last ability. He searches for his Sol Ring and then plays in Mana Confluence. He attacks Elder with both creatures and Elder blocks the Buccaneer. Malcolm triggers for him to draw a card and create 1 treasure. He then activates glint-horn Buccaneer as much times as he can, all the way until he has no mana, but he did find a Deflecting Sword, so he feels confident as he passes the turn. Elder untaps and prays for the top deck land for Linvala, but he unfortunately didn't draw any, so he just scoops it up as David has enough mana to kill him once he attacks. GG. Since this was a fairly short threesome, we decided to play another one. This time Diogo won the dice roll and he's going first. He mulliganed down to 6, finding a mountain and a Shattered Skull smashing for lands. Quite sad, no one else is playing black, so he sent Exotic Orchard to the bottom. Chromox can help in mana fixing as he has Sacrifice at hand. Impulsive Pilfer is a good enabler to cast Dargo, and he has Deflecting Sword for protection. David also mulliganed down to 6, finding quite some good mana for a turn to Malcolm. Mountain, Volcanic Island and Bloodstained Mire for lands, with a Mox Diamond and Arcane Signet for ramp. A Braid to hopefully kill that Rabies dog, and he sent the March to the bottom. Bal mulliganed once and didn't want to go lower, having found an Ancient Tomb and a Lucky Gemstone Caverns for lands. This spell, Fierce Guardianship and Spell Stutter Sprite allows him to control the board early on, while Dramatic Reversal can serve as a ritual if he finds the rocks or extra card draws with Azami out. Vidalcan Ethermage is a great tutor to help him find any specific wizard from his list. Finally, Elder also mulliganed once and also found a Lucky Gemstone Caverns. Emmerheim once again allows him to trigger Yoshimaru early. Arcane Signet for ramp, Shadow Spear gives some well-needed semi-evasion and Flaming Fist is being tested to faster take opponents out. Swords to Plowshares for some removal and he sent Astor to the bottom. Ready for round 2? Before the game starts, Bal announces his Gemstone Caverns, exiling Vidalcan Ethermage, and then Elder announces his own cavern, exiling his Swords to Plowshares. Diogo then finally gets to start his turn. He plays a mountain and casts a Chromox, exiling his Shattered Skull smashing. He then casts Impulsive Pilfer and passes. David plays a Bloodstained Mire and cracks it for an untapped Steam Vents. He then casts a Mox Diamond, discarding a Wooded Foothills, and casts an Arcane Signet, ending his turn. Bal draws, hoping for a Jewel Lotus, but he simply plays an Ancient Tomb and passes. Elder plays Emmerheim and then casts his own Arcane Signet, to then cast his commander Yoshimaru, but as everyone passes priority, Bal slams down a Spell Stutter Sprite, attempting to counter the dog, celebrating as he casts his second spell that whole day. Diogo plays a Wooded Foothills and cracks it for a Badlands, to then cast his Dargo, by sacrificing the Chromox and Pilfer, which leaves behind a treasure. He then uses it to cast Burnt Offering, sacrificing Dargo for 5 black and 2 red mana. He then casts his other commander, Tevesh, Doom of Fools. He is still able to recast Dargo for 1 red mana and upticks Tevesh, creating 2 Thralls to end his turn. David plays a Volcanic Island and casts his commander Malcolm, still with open mana to interact. Bal is alive in his third turn, playing a Scalding Tarn and cracking it for a snow-covered island, passing with open interaction as well. Elder fails a land drop and recasts his Yoshimaru before passing. Diogo gets to his turn and activates Tevesh right away to sacrifice Dargo and draw 3 cards. He plays a Swamp and casts an Arcane Signet, following it with a Talisman of Indulgence and passes the turn. David draws, plays a Mountain and casts his other commander, Kediss. Here we go again. He attacks Elder for 2, creating 1 treasure, and Kediss also triggers to deal 2 damage to each other opponent for 2 more treasures and passes. Bal draws a Failure Stone that he casts, and now without Dargo on the table he attacks Tevesh in the air and passes. You might ask why he didn't attack him the turn before, and he feared Diogo would just lure Elder to activate Jeska on Dargo so that he could kill him quite early. Elder just draws into Dockside and puts it on the stack, expecting a counterspell, but it does resolve. It enters and the Vid does not crack a single treasure, so Elder creates 8 treasures. He now casts Shadow Spear, triggering Yoshi, and follows it with a Flaming Fist for another counter on the doggy. He equips Yoshimaru with Shadow Spear and still goes ahead casting Jeska, which is enough to eradicate any player. It resolves, so he uses her Zero ability to give Yoshimaru triple damage. After some table talk, he proceeds to combat, attacking the Vid. Flaming Fist triggers, providing Yoshi double strike, and before blockers, the Vid casts an Abrade on the Shadow Spear, so he can safely block. However, Bal responds with a Dispel on it. Considering he did not crack his 3 treasures, he would most likely be up to something in his next turn. The Vid contests he has 2 cards in hand, but eventually mentions he needed those treasures to try to win in his next turn. Despite the block, he dies with 27 commander damage, and we're back to Diogo's turn. He draws and casts a Skull Clamp right away. It resolves and he equips it on a Thrall, drawing 2 cards. He plays a City of Brass and equips the other Thrall with Skull Clamp, drawing 2 more cards. He now casts Unearth on his Impulsive Pilferer, so he can then activate Tevesh, sacrificing it to draw 2 more cards, and create a treasure in the process. He now cracks his last treasure for red and taps his last rocks while sacrificing them and Skull Clamp to cast his Dargo for a single mana, being reduced by 10. With the red and black mana he floated from his rocks, he casts a Sacrifice, sacrificing Dargo as an additional cost, generating 7 black mana. With the red mana he recasts Dargo again, and with the black mana he casts a Disciple of Bolas, entering play and sacrificing Dargo, gaining 7 life and drawing 7 cards, 13 extra cards drawn this turn. Will he make it with the 3 last black mana? Well, he found a Toxic Deluge that he casts, paying 6 life just to be sure. He proceeds to clean up, feeling safer he will see another turn. Bal found a Mana Crypt, and he then casts his Azami Lady of Scrolls, tapping it right away to draw a card in case it's a land, but it is not, so he passes. Elder gets to his turn, casts a Lion's Eye Diamond and follows it with a Rograk, Son of Rogak. He goes ahead, cracking his LED, discarding his last card in hand, Underworld Breach. He recasts his Yoshimaru and simply passes the turn. Diogo taps and puts an Animate Dead on the stack right away, targeting Elder's Dockside Extortionist. Bal promptly responds with a Fierce Guardianship, but Diogo has the Deflecting Sword at hand, so they fear the worst as Dockside enters play and creates 5 treasures. He casts a Strike It Reach, creating another treasure, and he puts a Phyrexian Altar on the stack. Does he have the outlet? He does, a Mayhem Devil, so exactly with the 3 last treasures he casts him, and uses City of Brass to cast Dargo for a single red mana. This way he demonstrates a loop, where he sacrifices Dargo for 1 red mana with the altar, triggering Mayhem Devil and pinging an opponent, being able to recast Dargo over and over again with his red mana generated. GG. Thank you for joining us for today's match, everyone. During the first game, people weren't yet aware that the Vid was on a polymorph list, and removing the control player early gave little to no struggle for the Vid to win after landing Curiosity. The second game had another fast start from Elder once he found Dockside, which eventually killed the Vid before he could go off. However, Skull Clamp paired with Disciple of Bolas gave Diogo 13 extra cards in a single turn, which allowed him to find Deluge and then the outlets to go off, still with SWAT protection. We'd like to start the credits by thanking our current patrons, and especially Izanagi, TJ Rap, Ajimu, Dragonhousecat, V, RJ, Heated Chill, Pina, Ricardo, Dragonsteak, Katarina, Super Scaldi, Dog, Wicked, Zinan, New Gunsmith, and CJ Wally, our stack breakers. If you want to support us, you can do so by liking this video, subscribing, or by becoming a patron yourself. If you want to go through other Commander adventures, click one of the videos on the right. If you want to talk with us about our games or other EDH related matters, join us on Discord. Join us again next week for a new set of Commanders and more decisive plays. See you all then.